Welcome to Macgasm TV. I'm Luca Fiore.
And I'm Sean Rioux.
And today we've got a few audio applications and some devices to review. But I guess, what do we got for today, Sean?
Well, we'll start with the new app called Rockmate. This is an app that gives you the option of jamming with multiple friends. You've got pretty much a whole band set up, so we'll just give you a quick look at that. So here we've got drums, a keyboard with options of organ or bass guitar, and two guitars. So you can jam with up to 4 people. Takes good advantage of the multi-touch, which I like. And you also have a record mode feature and multiple effects. So I suppose me and Luca can give a quick demo. I'll take drums.
All right, fine.
So to change the progressions, you have these 4 switches. They're like hot switches that change the progressions on both guitars, which is kind of neat, keeping you in sync with your partner when you're jamming. So
it really resembles GarageBand too, eh?
Yeah, it has. I think the aesthetic's actually pretty nice. There's a few functionality things that I'm not happy with, but other than that, it's pretty neat.
Well, what aren't you happy with?
Well, for one thing, I found that this like center console for the interface, if you can see that, it's a bit weird. You end up hitting it sort of accidentally when you get way too excited jamming out on it. So I didn't like that. And also, there's no real like dedicated bass guitar. Like you got these 2 guitars here, which is awesome because again you can jam with 4 people. But to actually play a bass, you have to use the keyboard, which I found kind of unusual when you could have just had another guitar that syncs with these hot switches. But I mean, other than that, it's pretty good. It just basically means that if you have a friend who actually knows music, they're probably going to be on the bass guitar. But
I guess you could set this up to be an organ or a piano. Or
yeah, it's got a few presets, which is nice. But I mean, yeah, and overall, it's a pretty good app. I mean, I wouldn't put this in the class of like pro iPad apps, and like for music, that it's definitely getting to the point where there are a lot of those. So I mean, like which I think
this
kind of
this is more just for fun.
Yeah, this is more just for fun. This is like a good party favor, and if you have a few musician friends, like you can pull this out at a party and get excited for a few minutes. But I mean, again, it has a record function, which I guess you could try to sketch out a song if you wanted to, but I don't see this being like a pro sequencer.
Yeah, I don't really. Well, I mean, like only 3 effects on each guitar.
Yeah,
and
which sound okay.
It could be a lot more detailed at that, but I guess they wanted to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah, well, I think the idea with this is just that it gives people an opportunity to just sort of jump right in on jamming a song, which is nice. You've got some sort of weird flangey effect on that there.
And these are sequenced like into one key, so once
again, like you have hotkeys, right? So like you can build a progression with these separate buttons here, and that switches on both sides to keep the two guitar performances in key.
That's great.
Which is a pretty cool feature. Again, like you didn't have to actually have too much of a like working knowledge of music to jump right in. And it also has presets for like different styles of music. So here's a sweet metal preset, although that doesn't sound too much different.
That's not very what metal band plays like this?
Oh, what else do we have here? We've got Rocky, whatever that means. Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of differentiation.
The naming scheme.
But again, I mean,
what is cats? If it's only meows, I'm going to be very impressed.
I don't think it's meows. No, I don't know.
I'm not impressed at all.
Yeah, so I mean, again, like it's not really a pro app, but it's something that would be fun for someone to just sort of jump in. Okay. I find with like GarageBand or even some of the other apps available for the iPad, like there's like a little bit more pro functionality, but it's still really user friendly. This is more just user friendly. So, yeah.
Okay. So moving on from there, our second product is the iRig. I want to call this a Midi module.
Yeah, well, exactly. It just uses the 30-pin connector on the bottom. It works on the iPad or the iPhone, which is kind of cool. And yeah, basically it just gives you a Midi in, through, and out. Now, like anyone familiar with like Midi in general will understand why that's useful. But I mean, basically you can use this to sync your synthesizers, or you could use it to just basically use a keyboard that has Midi out as a controller for one of the apps that are on here. Now, one of my favorite apps on the iPad right now is the Korg IMS-20, which is a, if you can take a look at that, you have like basically a whoops, you have a pro level analog sequencer. It's actually built on the Korg MS-20, which for audiophiles, you'll know that that's what was a really cool USB based synthesizer that Korg developed, which went along with their legacy pack. So this is basically modeled after the same thing. You've got a ton of really cool features, but for the iRig, I mean, basically it just works as a really good controller. So your iRig here, it has a MIDI out, MIDI in and a MIDI out. So right now I've got the micro Korg plugged into the MIDI in, which is controlling this Korg analog sequencer, the IMS-20, with a nice hardware key set. Personally, I don't mind using the touchscreen, like for sequencing and that kind of stuff. So
yeah, but
I mean, at the same time, like I could see the benefit for performance. Now, there's some things with this device that like I really loved because it's simple. And again, it works with the iPhone and it works with the iPad, which is really great. There's a couple of things that I didn't like so much. Like for one thing, like it's only MIDI in and out, which is like, I mean, obviously that's the whole point, but there's no way to get that audio out, right? Like right now we've got like just a pair of computer speakers plugged into the iPad. That's not really ideal. Like if you wanted to use this in a performance scenario, that's not going to cut it because you want like a line level out,
yeah,
or SLR out, even if you can get it. But
something beefy that like
right. And there are other devices on the market or that are coming to the market soon that are offering that. Alesis has it's called the DM Dock. It has MIDI in, MIDI out, and it also has 2 line levels out, which is actually pretty awesome. And it's built into sort of a beefy packaging and comes with drum software. And there's also the Akai SynthStation49, which is coming out soon. They keep pushing back the release date, but once that comes out, I think you're going to see a lot more people using the iPad as a component in their MIDI setup. With this, it's more, it's great for recording. Like if you wanted to use, I can show GarageBand, like if you just wanted to set up a sequence in GarageBand and you're really comfortable with a certain keyboard, you can plug that right in. You can also get, obviously, the camera kit for the iPad, which allows you to plug a USB keyboard directly into the iPad.
And that'd work as well, just as easily.
And that'd work as well, just as easily. Another one of the things that I wasn't too happy with this is that I found that the MIDI out really doesn't have a lot of purposes. It's weird because like a lot of the apps just aren't really built to anticipate that you're going to be syncing, and a lot of the apps don't use MIDI clock, which is kind of an old, archaic way of syncing. But nonetheless, like you don't use the out a lot, right? Which is so. I mean, it's got this in, out, and through, but none of the apps really take advantage of it yet, including GarageBand. So it's you're mostly going to use this thing when you want to, you have a physical keyboard you like. Maybe it's an older like Korg or whatever synthesizer that has MIDI out, and you want to plug it directly in. Also, I could think I have like a Roland TD4, which is like a drum kit, a MIDI drum kit, and there's some really good drum apps that you could use for that too. So I could see the potential in a studio application for sure.
This seems more useful for live use, though, in all honesty, just for the size sake. And you said that
true, but
does
it's
work
just
with the iPhone.
Right. I mean, like again, too. Like it's. I mean, my biggest problem with that is just again, you're sort of stuck using this audio out. Whereas like a lot of the docks that are coming out, like again, like I said, the Akai SynthStation, like it actually has like professional level audio outs, and it's using because like with this, like you're already using your 30-pin connector for this, so you can't use it for like a separate audio out, right? So I mean, it's not a huge drop on it. I mean, you could still get like some sort of connector to attach there, but
how much is the Alesis one?
That's going to be $260.
Whereas this is not.
Right, no, exactly. Which is great for like an entry-level thing. And, and again, I mean, like it's, I didn't really have like a lot of complaints for it in terms of what it does. Like the connection's a bit flimsy, but I think if you're plugging it into an iPhone, you'd probably be a lot more comfortable with it because it's a little bit closer to the width of an iPhone.
Does this require its own, does this have its own built-in
battery? It doesn't have its own power supply. It powers itself off of the iPad, but it also has a USB connection, so you can plug it into your laptop or whatever you have around that has a USB port to power it off of USB. Oh, cool. That way you don't have to drain your iPad. And I mean, personally, like I could actually see myself down the road using like my MacBook Air and this as part of a music production or performance setup. And in which case, you'd obviously have an additional USB port to plug that into, so you wouldn't have to worry about draining everything, or draining your power.
My last question is, does it feel flimsy at all?
Yeah, definitely a bit. Like you feel it on the connector. Like once I get it plugged in, I kind of don't want to touch it, which is weird because a lot of the apps have like cutoff or various like audio controls that you're obviously going to want to use. So if you get a bit too into it, you might start sliding this around, and you know, the worst case scenario could possibly happen. And with the iPad, you don't really want that. But I mean, it's you know, again, like, I don't look at this as like a seriously like performance capable piece of hardware. It's more about like getting into MIDI with the iPad. Like once you've opened that door, you see the power of the iPad as like an actual like music creation device. Like I mean, like right now for me, if I want to sketch out a song, the iPad's the first place I go. And so having this device is great because if I'm more comfortable with a keyboard like this, I can just throw it in. And again, it's not too expensive in comparison to some of the other stuff that's coming.
Cool. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I guess that's all we have for this week. You can find us online at Macgasm.net, on YouTube, on Blip, on Friendster, on MySpace, LinkedIn.
Is there MySpace? Is there a MySpace?
I don't think there's a MySpace.
No, I don't think so either.
I don't think there's a friend. I don't know. Anyway.
Right. You can follow me on Twitter at Sean Rioux if you'd like.
Sean Rioux, and I'm at Valkline, and that's it for this week. So
cheers.
Go fuck yourself.